today we are announcing the award of $125,000 resiliency grant to improve the management of the Sarasota County beaches. This funding will aid the development of a comprehensive vulnerability study and subsequent resilience plan that will allow federal, state, and local officials to collaboratively and strategically plan for sea level rise along sandy shorelines of Sarasota County. So a couple of months ago, I brought the DEP secretary out here to talk about Siesta Key beaches and a couple of issues that were present at the time, and we talked a lot about how can we continue to make Sarasota beaches and Siesta Key Beach for the long-term future some of the best beaches in the entire world. Dr. Beach has given this ranking #1 beach in the country a couple of times, and the question is in 10, 20, 30 years, with all the issues that we're facing with sea level rise, with erosion, how can we develop a plan bringing all the local governments together to ensure that Siesta Key beaches and all Sarasota County beaches are the best beaches across this country. And in my discussions with the DEP secretary, we were talking about potentially getting a grant, and today, or a couple days ago, he informed us that we were awarded that grant, and so we can work with Sarasota County, so they can work with all these local governments, so we can put together that plan and that study that will give us the framework that we need to ensure that Sarasota beaches are #1 for the next generation. This is about the environment, this is about water quality.
Well, good afternoon and thank you. It's a good time to work on environmental protection in Florida. To have legislative and local leadership so supportive of protecting the environment has really kick-started an environmental movement here in Florida. I think the rest of the nation's really paying attention to it now. When Governor DeSantis came into office, he said the environment was going to be a top priority, and his actions showed that it is. Only a couple days into his time as governor, he issued an executive order, set a goal of getting $2.5 billion over 4 years for water quality. And we've been meeting and exceeding that with the legislature's support, more than $625 million each year now for water quality that the governor's been in office. That alone would be amazing. That alone has really warmed the hearts of the staff of the Department of Environmental Protection. But then this year to see legislation moving forward and passed, now signed into law, that every single fine across the board in our agency was increased by at least 50% and as much as 100%. That does not happen often. Look any state in the U.S. across the board increasing fines for the environment. Florida said the environment matters, recognized that it supports our economy, and said that we really have to take the steps to protect it, and that shows. In addition, the idea of getting together scientists like Dr. Crosby's organizations and others, whether it was on the Red Tide Task Force or the Blue Green Algae Task Force, and say, hey, we're going to gather together a group of scientists. We're going to ask them some difficult questions. We're actually going to listen, and then we're going to do something about it, not just put their report on a shelf and leave it there for the next decade. That rarely, if ever, happens in government. Usually, you may ask difficult questions, usually ask the questions you want to, and then leave the report on the shelf. With this, Blue Green Algae Task Force issued a report. We brought back to the agency, sat down with our chief science officer and said, well, what can we do to implement this? What can we do to actually take action from this? What legislative changes do we need? What changes within the agency do we need? And then just a few months later, we've already passed Senate Bill 712. The governor's now signed that into action, and we're taking broad sweeping actions, whether it's on stormwater, wastewater, agriculture, and any sources of nutrients across the board. And then to add on top of that, why we're here today. This year we received record funding from the legislature, more than $20 million for coastal protection and protection of coral. And really to have us start providing grants to communities to plan for the impacts of climate change, specifically sea level rise, and make sure that we're making the decisions to lead the nation on how we handle resilience. I think this is a great example. The commissioner got it exactly right. Many times in government, we're too reactive and we're not actually looking forward and proactively taking steps to address the challenges that we see coming. When you think about sea level rise, you can't just think about incremental changes like putting in a seawall or protecting just small increments of space for municipalities within a county. You've got to think about the whole county And then how's it going to impact the resources that make this county what it is? This beach behind us is a world example of a beach that draws folks in from around the world to enjoy it. Really defines the county, and so you have to ask the question, what are we going to do over the coming years to protect it, to make sure that 20 years from now, 50 years from now, and 80 years from now, that this county is going to have the same robust economy built on the natural resources it has. I applaud the senator and the commissioner for being willing to really take that affirmative step. It's the first time we've seen it as an agency. We're so excited to be able to do that. We hope it becomes a model for the rest of the nation and certainly other communities throughout Florida. So when this report is done for Sarasota, it's not just going to benefit Sarasota. Yes, Sarasota will be another county now with a vulnerability plan, but more importantly, they'll be the first community in Florida to really have a roadmap for how you maintain a robust environment and economy built off of beaches, and then other communities throughout Florida will be able to take that and benefit from it and replicate it in their own communities. So thank you for your support for resilience, but most importantly, thank you for your support for making environment a priority in the state of Florida.